welcome to another Friday edition of Second City Sports right here live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. You want to know why? Because we said so. That's why. And also, you can listen to any of our other 5 live shows, including this one, Second City Sports. And if you happen to miss them, you can watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. So make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. And make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you want to catch the audio version of this podcast, you can do so by subscribing to War on Anchor. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in those search engine boxes, WARR on Anchor. And you can follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Once again, at War Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very different opinions. And if you have a comment or question on any of our topics during today's show, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or on Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to say or do something stupid, or you decide to troll, Lakeena will give you the Beer Lane Beer Boot.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Lakeena, let's get this party started on another hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports. The Bears actually made some good news for once. They hired a new general manager, the first African-American general manager in franchise history. His name is Ryan Poles. And he was given the keys to hire his own head coach. You know who he hired? The Indianapolis Colts defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus. Did I pronounce that correctly, or is it Plus?
I don't know. I'm sure. When they do the press release, I'm sure he'll make the correction there. But look, this is one of those. Hell if I know. Like I don't know. I don't know if this was the right move. I mean, look, I've touted the Colts defense, the top defense in the league the last few years, and Coach Eberflus was a big part of that. And also too for Poles. I mean, this is a very mindful guy. Went to BC, had a cup of coffee with the Bears. He's an old lineman. So yeah, all those things are. Look, I don't know. I don't know if this is a good move or not. We'll just have to wait and see. This was Poles' hire. Because apparently, I guess according to various reports, depending on who you talk to, apparently Bill Polian wanted Jim Caldwell, of course, to go back to their days in Indianapolis in the early 2000s. George McCaskey and the 2 other people that were part of the process apparently wanted Dan Quinn, but Poles wanted Eberflus. So maybe he saw something that they didn't. I don't know. But again, this is another one of those. I don't know what's going to happen. So I think if you're going to say that, you really don't know. So there's just so many parameters here. And look, do you find a really good defensive coordinator? I know there's some names being floated out there. But again, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. We have to see him on the football field because I don't know how you feel, Sid, but I don't think they're a contender. They're gonna have to get rid of a lot of dead money. So I don't think they're close to contending yet.
We'll get to the salary cap situation in just a moment. I want to go back to the new GM, Ryan Poles. He was interviewed by the Bears the other day, and of course, the Minnesota Vikings hired their own general manager, who's also African American as well. But Ryan Poles was scheduled to interview with the Vikings. He told George McCaskey up front, according to reports, if you're not going to let me hire my own head coach, I'm not going to work for you. I got Minnesota in my back pocket. That's a power move right there. What are you going to do? Of course, George caved in to hire Ryan Poles, and the rest is history. Now, I'm with you again as far as the rest of the coaches that we're probably going to see and hear a news conference probably on Monday. I don't know. We'll be doing our show or Sean and Maya's. So stay tuned to Sports Zone Chicago for all the latest updates and details. But I know that Peanut Tillman, a former Bear, and Lance Briggs, a former Bear, who's on NBC Sports Chicago's Football After Show. Of course, they play under Lovie Smith many years ago, and both of them say hire Rod Marinelli, who's a longtime defensive coordinator of the Buccaneers, and he worked with the Bears here in Chicago many years ago. They said hire him as a defensive coordinator. I'm worried about more of the offensive side of the ball. Who are you going to hire there? Because that's going to set the tone, or who are you going to get in terms of draft and free agency later. I want to see who the new offensive coordinator is.
And that's gonna be the question to George Ella. What's up, George? Said I'm surprised I hired a brother and gave him some power. I mean, look, that's a GM. There actually are quite a few African American GMs now in the NFL. With of course with Poles and Kwase move. I gotta get his name right. He just got hired from the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
I know they got one up with the Lions, and a few other places too. And I think there's one down there with the Falcons. So I think, look, I think this is probably one of the. I don't know if this is one of the. This is one of the main reasons why they had a hiring committee so that they can kind of have a fair process. It wouldn't be like a Rooney Rule type situation where they just had a token, guy, interview for the job. So they see, look. They say like he had the best person for the job, and he pulled the power move. So again, did it end up being like a smart move? We'll just have to wait and see. But I think the diversity, the NFL, to their credit, is trying to get more diversity, more minorities, and more females in those higher up positions like a GM and then things like that. So look, we'll just have to wait and see if he does a good job.
You're listening to Second City Sports on the hashtag Football Friday edition. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena are here with you. Second City Sports. Lakeena, one more point about Ryan Foles. Remember when we aired the press conference when George McCaskey, you said, has some word salad stuff going on, keeping it clean for the kids. He was doing the mumble jumble on that press conference a couple of weeks ago. Joe Lewis from the Barbershop Network, who covers the Bears for their great website. Hopefully we can get him on this show very soon. Yeah, he was the only reporter in town to ask the question, were you going to look to hire young people, new fresh blood to turn this thing around? And I noticed that Ryan Poles is age 37. I know he tried out for the Bears back in 2007, I believe. He didn't get his chance, but he was determined to work in the world of football, and look where he is now. So I like that a young person is getting his chance. He worked his way up through the Kansas City organization. I know he was with a couple other teams before then, but this young man worked his way up, and now he's given the full opportunity to lead the charter franchise at the NFL.
And look, this is a good opportunity for him again. People, he comes highly touted and highly recommended. I mean, he helped build that team in Kansas City that's still doing successful things, now. So, of course, that photo, of course, when they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, that's a photo that's being shown all over the Bears social media. So, again, can he lead the Bears to that? I mean, that's going to be the number one question. It's going to be about the coaching staff. It's going to who he brings in. It's going to be about, the personnel decisions. Are you going to have a good offensive coordinator to coach around Justin Fields, help develop him? Is he the guy? I just don't know. And George, with another opinion saying that the OC is the most important hire, black GM for the Bears, hip hop Super Bowl halftime show. Wow.
If you know P. Diddy, give him a call.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, look, if Colin is available, I know he still does, some stuff. So we'll see. He's from Chicago, so we'll see what happened there. But yeah, I mean, look, this whole thing. I mean, again, this is not, a make or break. But like I said before, I mean, I can't really say because of the fact that we haven't seen him coach yet. We haven't seen, Mr. Poles, draft anybody yet. We don't know how Matt Eberflus. Now, for what we've all heard, he's a great motivator. So. Okay, yes, you can, that Colts performance against the Jaguars to end the season aside, that kept them going to the playoffs, but that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, it's so look, like I said, I can't tell you. I don't know what to tell y'all. And I'm glad that most people are saying, look, I don't know what to think of this. We just got to wait and see.
Yeah, and going back to Matt Eberflus, the new head coach, some of the things I've been reading and hearing over the last 48 hours or so, he has the old Lovie Smith, Rob Marinelli, if you want to call it, mentality of getting the ball out, punching the ball out, and creating turnovers. But the one other factor here that I like that I've been hearing in over the last couple of days, he holds people accountable. Remember, Lakeena, how many times that we discussed over this podcast and over the show these last couple of years, players like Eddie Jackson and former players now like Javon Williams and Anthony Miller, those players who did something stupid and they were still rewarded by getting playing time. The culture and the tone needed to be changed at Howell. So it looks like Matt Eberflus is going to do that. We know that tough situations are going to come up in any season. How he's going to handle that, we'll wait and see on that. But for all the things I've been reading and hearing, I like the temperament of this new head coach. Now, you talked about the Indianapolis Colts defense last year, Lakeena. Of course, they had Phillip Rivers as their quarterback a year ago, but that defense was good. Remember that game against the Bears last year? The Bears looked like crap.
Yes, they
You saw
did.
what the Colts. You saw what the Colts did. They still have good young talent on their defense, led by Darius Leonard and Rutgers. So that Indianapolis defense is still a good defense. And this past season, they led the AFC in turnovers with 33. And so Mr. Matt Eberflus knows what he's doing. And going back to that roster, which we'll break down in a minute, I'll ask you what do you think about what they're going to do this offseason. But this team, outside of 2018, struggled to take the ball away. They did get their sacks here and there, but in the turnover department outside of 2018, it's been a struggle.
It really has, and I think that's the thing that was missing this past season was, the defense did what, they did the defensive things. They had sacks. Robert Quinn had a great season, led the team in sacks. But, where was that peanut punch that we all know and love? Or what was, this and that? Now, hopefully Eberflus can, be sort of the guy to kind of reemphasize that. And plus also depend on who they choose as a defensive coordinator. So it's sort of, like I said, it's one of those things where you sort of wonder, okay, what's going to be sort of like the top priority? Now, do you get an old lineman? Mr. Poles is a former old lineman. Do you try to get, do they go online? Do they try to trade, some of the picks that they got from the later rounds to try to get a first round pick? Because remember, they don't have a first round pick, this spring, folks. So remember that. So
because of the Justin Fields trade.
Yeah. So, and also too, you got a lot of guys that are coming up. I mean, Hicks is probably going to be gone. Some people have said maybe they may have to trade Khalil Mack. I don't know if that's that's going to be the thing that's going to be for them to do. But look, it's going to be one of those things where I don't think this team is not ready to win now. They're not. And I feel like there's a sort of I don't know, the next year is going to be terrible. I think people need to kind of, should not be surprised they go like, 7-10 or like, 6-11 or something like that. Cause I feel like that's just going to be sort of like the thing here. But it's going to be one of those things where you wonder, like, okay, what's going to happen with this? The roster is the roster. Like I said before, I don't think this roster is prepared to win next year. I guess you can go from worst to first like that in the NFL, but you look at the personnel. There's going to be you don't know. Grant. I mean, you don't know. Is he going to be your answer? Are you going to is David Montgomery going to be used more? We just don't know any of that.
If you have a question or comment for us about the Chicago Bears, what do you think about the two new hires? You can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. We have another comment from George Allow. The offensive line should be a priority. We agree. Do you think Allen Robinson is going to stay?
No.
Me personally, no.
No. I'm just going to keep it short and sweet for you, George. No, that's not. He's going to want to look. If you look at his girlfriend's Instagram, I think she's over it too. And I'm sure, A-Rob, I think if you're A-Rob, you want to go to a contender. The Bears aren't going to contend next year. So you're just going to try to maybe go somewhere else. And I don't think they're going to give you the money either. I think, that money, I'm sure Mr. Poles feel like it's going to be probably used elsewhere.
Yeah. Speaking of the money, Lakeena, the Bears will have close to $30 million in cap space this offseason. And new GM Ryan Poles will have a lot of work to do. I was talking to somebody away from here actually yesterday, and I said this to this person. Each new coaching staff will look at the film from the previous year, and they're going to look at what players can we use, what players can we bring in, what scheme can we use, and looking at I'm sure this new coaching staff is going to have a lot of nights they're going to puke looking at what Matt Nagy did on the offensive end. But it's going to determine what the new coaching staffs, the schemes they're going to use, and that's going to determine what type of players they're going to get. Will the Bears still run a 3-4 defense, or will they want a basic 4-3 Tampa 2 defense? We'll soon find that out. But going to the salary cap numbers, Khalil Mack, as you mentioned, Lakeena, he has a cap number hit of $30.1 million. His base salary is over $12 million. Robert Quinn, who's second on the team in total salary, his cap numbers is just a shade over $17 million. Eddie Goldman, who didn't play last year due to COVID concerns, he barely played this year. He's making $11.8 million. Nick Foles, this is the question. What are they going to do with him? Are you going to keep him at backup quarterback? Because he makes $10.6 million. That's his cap number. How you like them apples?
Yeah, so that's gonna be that's going to be the thing that Mr. Poole is going to have to figure out because do you want to waste another 10 million on him? Maybe, I don't know, but it's one of those things where you wonder, like, okay, is it worth keeping him, or do you want to keep a veteran like Foles to help develop, kind of like
Mhm.
mentor Field? So that's going to be another thing that's gonna that they're gonna have to figure out. But I feel like, look, is he the right guy to do it? We'll just have to wait and see. But I feel like, well, like I said before, we're just going to see how they do off the field. We're
Mhm.
going to have to see how Mr. Poles does in his first NFL draft. We'll have to see, some other moves that they make during the off season. And look, I mean, yes, they're going to have a lot of money, to play with, but so will a lot of other teams. So you're going to be competing
Mhm.
against other teams that are going to get rid of a lot of dead money. And once everything, the salary cap's readjusted. So we
Mhm.
look, a lot of this is sort of just to be continued.
Yeah, just a couple other names for you, Lakeena. Eddie Jackson, he makes over $50 million this year. That's his cap number. Danny Trevathan, well, we assume that he's going to get cut. I was surprised he was brought back this year. He makes
Mm-hmm.
$5.7 million. Andy Dalton, he's a free agent. He made over $5 million this year, so he's not going to be brought back. Here's the player that no one's talking about, and he didn't play this year. He got injured during the 2020 season. That's Tariq Cohen. His basic cat number is $5.7 million. Do you think the new GM Ryan Post will make a surprise move in cutting him?
He might. I mean, like I said before, if it saves money and if he wants to come back, I think, that I'm sure the offer will be on the table. But at this point, we don't know what's going to be his mindset. So I don't know. I mean, he just hasn't been very productive. So
Exactly.
that might be a case for him to kind of cut his losses. But again, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and Roquan Smith is his cap hit is $9.7 million. They're not going to cut him. Do they resign him this offseason, even though the cap is supposed to go up on like a year ago due to the pandemic?
And that's another question. I mean, I know that. And I'm thinking that, you know what, it's going to be, like I said before, I think he's probably one of the few guys that was actually pretty productive last year, besides
Mhm.
Quinn. And he's still playing on his rookie contract. So I'm sure they're going to try to keep him and perhaps maybe try to, pay him his worth. But how much they're going to pay him, I don't know. But, what his agent thinks, we'll have to ask his agent about that. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be very interesting.
Excuse me. You listen to Second City Sports on the hashtag Football Friday edition, right here, live and in living color on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you. Lakeena, we have a couple of minutes left before we have to break for the bottom of the hour. Here are the top 5 teams in the National Football League with the most cap space this upcoming offseason. The base salary cap is supposed to be projected at just over $208 million. The Dolphins lead the league with over $65 million in cap space, followed by the Jaguars at $59 million. The Cincinnati Bengals, who will play in the AFC title game on Sunday, we'll talk about them coming up the next hour at $59 million. The Chargers at $58 million, and the New York Jets at $46.8 million. And the teams are in salary cap hell are as follows: the New Orleans Saints at $75 million in the hole, the Packers at $50 million in the hole, followed by the Cowboys with a minus $21 million in the hole, the Vikings at $14 million, and the New York Football Giants at minus $10 million.
Oh, good luck to all those teams. I mean, I know the Bears are probably somewhere in the middle when it comes to, cap space. So they're kind of like on the top tier they'll have a lot of cap money. So
Yeah, they're in the
yeah,
middle of the pack at just north of $29 million.
okay. So yeah, so those folks are gonna have to figure it out, and also to the Giants as well. So yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
just that's gonna be, and also to Cincy. Look, Cincy. Well, we'll get to Cincy in a second, but they've overachieved, I think, this year. But we'll see what happens. But you know what? It's definitely, like I said before, we'll just have to wait and see what Mr. Poles does. But and again, maybe I don't want to say, he and Matt Ryan were college roommates at Boston College. I don't know if you can take that for what it's worth, but could maybe he be brought in to kind of be a mentor for Justin Fields. I don't know, but like I said, there's so many questions. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yes, we'll have to wait and see. We hit the bottom of the hour in Lakeena with the Chicago Bears. We'll have more on the discussion with about the Chicago Bears and the NFL abroad later on in the show next hour with our guest, Mr. Kaelin Jones. He's a staff writer at The Ringer. He covers the NFL for their great website. He's going to hop on with us next hour. We're going to get his thoughts about the Chicago Bears and the NFL abroad as well. We're going to get his Championship Sunday picks as well. But on the flip side of this break, we're going to talk some hoops. The Chicago Bulls received some good news yesterday, and we're going to give you the best and worst of the NBA from this past week, and we're going to talk some college hoops as well. There are some big games coming up on the schedule tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday. Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she, I am Cindy Brown. That's me. You listen to the hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA tonight, the Bulls take on the Raptors. Chicago a half game out of first place in the East, 29-17 overall. Struggling lately, they've dropped 7 of 10. The Raptors coming off a win. They're 6 games out of first, a game over 500, 23-22. Last night, they beat the Hornets 125-113 in Toronto. Tonight's matchup at United Center scheduled for a 7 o'clock tip-off. The Blackhawks are winless in 4 on the road tonight, visiting the Red Wings, 6:30 Central puck drop. The Hawks coming off a 2-0 shutout at Colorado on Monday night. Goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury reportedly receiving interest from the Washington Capitals as the trade deadline approaches. College basketball last night, big upset for number 24 Illinois, 56-55 over number 10 Michigan State. Loyola Chicago beat SIU 59-47. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Deep breaths.
Mi's virtual meditation studio has never been busier.
Imagine not working.
They need a remote assistant to realign their scheduling.
Blank calendar. Sorry, back to your breath.
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Make calls, schedule virtual interviews, and talk to candidates right from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, this is Discover, and we take customer service very seriously. We know that if you have a question or concern about your credit card, that's a serious matter, and you need to talk to a real person about it. So we offer around-the-clock access to seriously talented representatives in the USA. Again, it's a serious endeavor. The only funny thing about it is Bob. If you call us and Bob answers, you're in for a treat. Get 100% US-based customer service and talk to a real person day or night. Discover. Exceptionally common sense.
Welcome back to the hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid and Lakeena are here with you as we're going to close out the first hour of the program by talking about the Chicago Bulls. We'll have some college basketball news coming up for you guys along with the rest of the NBA. Lakeena, let's start off with the 30-17 Chicago Bulls. They're going to travel to San Antonio to take on the Spurs tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You can watch that game locally on NBC Sports Chicago. And abroad, you can watch that game on NBA League Pass. Lakeena, the Bulls have won their last 2 games. Then barely escaped OKC on the road on Monday with a 111-110 victory, and they defeated the Toronto Raptors in the makeup game from last month at the UC by the score of 111-105 on Wednesday. I want to review Wednesday's game with you, Lakeena. DeMar DeRozan, who was named an all-star starter. Congratulations to him. He tallied 29 points. Zach LaVine, who played in his second game since returning from a knee injury, he added 23 points. But Nikolai Vucevic, I know I hate using this term, but for many Bulls fans using him as a whipping boy. In 35 minutes of action, he has 17 points and 15 rebounds. And I believe his 25th double-double of the season.
Yep.
I actually watched that game this morning and preparing for this show. I like the way this Bulls team is playing. Yes, Toronto's hovering around 500, trying to get into the play-in to qualify for the playoffs. But this Bulls team, they were being aggressive, shooting high from the outside, especially in that first half. Toronto got back in the game, but the Bulls did enough to hold off the Raptors. But I really like Ayo Dosunmu. He's really been playing well ever since he's been inserted into the starting lineup. Of course, Alex Caruso and Alonzo Ball are both out, and both of them won't be back until late February, early March. But Remember, I said, Lakeena, during our NBA preview show before the season, I said, and this was when Kobe White was on the injured list. Ayo Dosunmu, the playing time that he gets through the first 2 months of the regular season is going to pay off at the end. Look what he's doing now with more minutes. He shot the ball well. He had a season high and a career high as of this broadcast, 24 points at OKC on Monday. Look what he's doing now. He's shooting the ball better. He has confidence, but he's also trying to get it done on the defensive end, especially on the perimeter.
And he's definitely made some big defensive stops late in those last couple of games, especially that one against I guess OKC when they were trying to catch up, from that big lead that they had. Look, I mean, it's not about style points right now. This isn't the old BCS in college football. I mean, as long as they win, look, the interior defense, inside, AO fouled out in that Raptors game. So even though he was one of the team leaders, so that was a he was making some big plays too. So that was unfortunate for him. But you know what? That's why he got DeRozan. That's why he got Levine. It looks like he's feeling better from the knee injury, which is great to see. Double doubles from Vooch. Javonte Green has been, really good for the Bulls. So
he was big in that fourth quarter the other night.
Yeah, he was.
He's one of my favorite players on the team right now.
That
guy could jump out the gym.
Yes, he can, and that was that's probably one of the reasons why they signed him, because he can't make big jumps and such. So yeah, and I think that's something that you want from one of your guys. But yeah, I mean he's this team is starting to mesh. You remember they're still shorthanded. Caruso's out. Ball's still out. They're probably going to be out for another 5 weeks. I know Lonzo Ball's supposed to be having his surgery right now as we speak, if he hasn't already done his surgery already. So, we'll see what happens, 5 to 6 weeks, we'll say maybe, early March, perhaps, give or take. So that's going to be the thing, once they all come back and play together. Basically just, at this point, if you're the Bulls, you just want to hold down the fort until you get to the All-Star break. You got the Spurs coming up, tonight. I mean, they're kind of up and down, they're kind of, meandering at 500. So, you take that for what it's worth. You got Portland and Orlando back to back, the last, in the next few days. Next week, you got Portland on Sunday. They for an early game right before the conference championship games, also to Orlando. Then you have Toronto again, Indiana. You maybe made some future teammates there. Philly, Phoenix. That's an NBA TV game on the February 7th. Also to Charlotte, Minnesota, Minnesota, and OKC. So you kind of have a sort of up and down scheduling there. So if you can kind of just stay right above 500, you could probably do feel pretty good if you can kind of keep everything afloat until you can get Ball and Caruso back.
Yeah, that's a favorable schedule going into the All-Star break. And don't forget, Derrick Jones Jr. is injured as well, so he's going to be out extended amount of time as well. Remember, he was playing well in the middle of December before the team had their COVID outbreaks as well. So, like you mentioned, for what they have, assuming they don't have any other major injuries, they should be at 500 or slightly above 500 until in 2 weeks when the All-Star break commences. The All-Star break, for those of you who don't know, is February 18th. Through the 20th, and the All-Star game this year will be in the city of Cleveland, Ohio. Lakeena, I want to focus in on one more player before we move on. Kobe White. He only had 9 points of 4-10 shooting in 24 minutes of action on Wednesday. Are you starting to worry about him, or do you think he's going to pick it back up? Hopefully, he'll start doing it tonight at San Antonio.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kobe. We know he's Kobe streaky, so I'm not worried that. Okay, oh my God, he hasn't been playing well these last couple of games. I'm not. I'm not gonna freak out about it. So look, I'm sure, remember he's still, getting used to, playing and, having a consistent basis. His conditioning probably still needs a little bit of work too. So, it might just be that kind of thing. So I'm not gonna freak out oh my God, he has been struggling the last couple of games. Okay. Look, I think you guys might get other guys there to kind of pick up the slack. So I'm not worried about Kobe White. He's probably not going to get traded, or he very likely won't get traded. So he doesn't worry about that either. So yeah, I'm not worried about Kobe. I know a lot of people are, but at this point, I think you just gotta roll the punches with Kobe.
You listen to Second City Sports. We're live and in living color on the hashtag Football Friday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you. As we'll switch over to the NBA as we usually do. We'll start backwards. We'll give you the best and worst in the week that was from the National Basketball Association. Let's start off with the two games that were on TNT last night. Lakeena, it was the Philadelphia 76ers over LeBron James list LA Lakers squad 105-87. Joel Embiid, who's playing at an MVP type level. I know Alana and Big Dave Watson gave me some grief when I said Joel will win MVP this year, but I'm going to leave that alone for now. But Joel Embiid led the 76ers with 26 points. On the other side for the Lakers, Anthony Davis decided to come out and play last night. Lakeena, he had some big dunks early, especially over Joel. He had 31 points and 12 rebounds in 34 minutes of action. Avery Bradley only 2 points at the two-guard spot. This is not going to get it done. And Malik Monk had 11 points on 3 of 13 shooting. Carmelo Anthony had 9 points off the bench. Dwight Howard, can you put his picture on a cereal box? His each time he plays, he doesn't do anything, and oh boy, it's just ugly for the Lakers right now. Yes, it was obvious that they missed LeBron last night, but a couple nights ago, which we'll get into in a second, they did a heck of a job beating the Brooklyn Nets squad without Kevin Durant by 10 on the road.
Well, and also to remember, AD got hurt. He kind of banged his shoulder up, his wrist up a little bit. So that's another reason why they were able to, the Sixers were able to kind of have their way with them. So we'll see the extent of that injury. It's always something with AD, unfortunately, at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, going back to that game, I guess Brooklyn. I mean, okay, LeBron. Look, the Lakers needed that more than the Nets did because KD was out, so you really weren't gonna get too much of it. So yeah, it's. I'm not gonna get into it too much because you saw what happened. LeBron had to sit down because of knee soreness, and that I know that made him very angry. So. But it also same thing with the AD getting hurt as well. So yeah, I mean, it's not. I'm not freaking out about that. So, but again, the Lakers continue, and look, Philly and Joel Embiid is still continues to kind of impress. And if it wasn't for Steph and his big season, and he's had his struggles, I think Embiid can kind of sneak into the MVP discussion.
Good point, fair point. And speaking of the Warriors, in the second game of the TNT doubleheader from Thursday, the Warriors defeated the Minnesota Timberwolves 124-115. Steph Curry, as you mentioned, Lakeena, he's at the top of my list still for MVP, even though he came out of his shooting slump last night. He had 29 points off of 10-20 shooting, including 6 of 10 for three-point range. Klay Thompson, they starting to increase his minutes a little bit in 27 minutes of action. He had 23 points, 9 of 16 shooting, including 5 of 9 for three-point range. He had a couple of big three-point shots, especially early in that game. Minnesota hung around. They made a run of it late, but it was the Warriors. They got the big win last night. And shout out to Jordan Poole as well. 19 points off the bench in 24 minutes of action.
Yeah, they are starting to increase Clay's minutes too. And Poole has been sort of like the guy off the bench since he's back on the bench now. So, I mean, this was definitely a win that the Warriors needed, necessarily because, they've had, Steph had to hit that 3-pointer, last week, the buzzer beater. Then, they've had this, comeback. They had to hold off the T-Wolves. T-Wolves tried to make a little bit of a run, but it wasn't enough. And I think the T-Wolves have had the Warriors' number, so I think they beat them like the last time they met. So it's definitely, I think there's definitely a win that the Warriors needed, and I feel like they're starting to kind of find the groove a little bit. The Splash Brothers, are back together, and stuff like that. We'll see what happens after the All-Star break, but yeah, I think there's definitely a great performance by the Warriors last night, and also want to give a shout out to the Clippers. Staying in California. I mean, they had the big comeback earlier this week. They were down, I think, 35 against the Wizards.
Yeah, to the Wizards, yep.
And, they put together a really big run. And I think it was Luke Kennard who hit that 3-pointer, and he was fouled. And that, propelled the Clippers to beat the Wizards. So I know DC
never foul a shooter.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they always say, don't foul anybody, shooting a 3. So you just, just hope and pray they don't do it. So, yeah, it's sort of, yeah, I mean, the Wizards, I'm sure, they're still smarting from that loss. If you're the Clippers, look, you're still trying to hold down the floor with, Kawhi still being out. And also, too, Paul George may miss another week or two. He may not be back till after the All-Star break. So, the Clippers are doing what they can. I mean, they also won against Orlando, too, so it didn't really defer them too much. So, they're trying to hang on.
Couple of games to highlight from this past week. Let's go backwards as we always do to Wednesday's action. The Cleveland Cavaliers continue to impress people around the league. They defeated the defending champion Bucks 115-99. Darius Garland, as I said before, Lakeena, Darius Garland and their big guy Jared Allen both should be all-stars. And I know the reserves, I believe, will be now announced next week, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You have the information there in front. It is okay.
Yes.
It's going to be a crime. To be realistic, Lakeena, it's going to be a crime if one of them don't get announced. If it was up to me, both of them will be on the All-Star team, but it will definitely be a crime if Darius Garland's not on the All-Star team. I don't want him to be named as a replacement because somebody came up late with an injury at the last minute. He should be named as a reserve. Of course, the reserves are picked by the coaches.
Yeah, let's just see if the Cavs can kind of keep this up. I mean, I know they've had some injuries. I know, they've had a couple of injuries. I know Rubio's out. It's sort of one of those things where you sort of like, can they keep it up? I know they definitely, went way past expectations. So can they keep it up? I think that's going to be sort of the question for them in the second half. Like, can they keep this up? I mean, can guys like Garland, and then all other guys like that, I mean, can they sort of keep up this pace? I'd safe to say that no one thought that this team would get this, would have this, they're, I don't want to say opportunistic, but they're kind of overachieve, I should say, them being the Knicks, that was a big, performance by them. And look, they're 29-19. They're right up there in the top 5. Like I said, can they keep it up? That's another question.
Yeah, I forgot who their head coach is, but their coach should be the front runner for Coach of the Year. Because, like you said, no one expected this. They're 29-19 right now. Many people, including yours truly, predicted them to win that many games for the entire season.
JB Bickerstaff.
Because I thought so. Yeah, I didn't want to say it yet because we don't speak what we don't know on this show.
Bernie's kid,
Yeah.
JB. So
his father was coaching those good Sonics teams back in the late 80s. Oh, those were good teams. Yeah, but shout out to JB Bickerstaff. Yeah, he has a nice young roster. No one, as you mentioned, no one expected this Cleveland team to win 30 games at this point in the season. We all expected them to win this many games for the entire year, but they're going to go past expectations. And as I said on our last episode, Lakeena, I'm not saying they're going to win the top of the Eastern Conference, but they're just like Miami. They're going to be a tough out for someone.
Well, the fact that they were able to beat Milwaukee, I think that's definitely helps the confidence. I think they're showing people that they are for real. But I think the key is going to be, Kevin Love's found a fountain of youth. So
yeah.
Look, like I said before, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if they can kind of get to the point where they can keep it up. I mean, that's up. So yeah.
The Charlotte Hornets scored the most points in their franchise history on Wednesday. They defeated the Indiana Pacers on the road 158-126. That's another team not too many people are talking about. Charlotte is still a young team. Of course, they got handled in their play-in tournament last year. If they get into the playoffs, I'm not saying they're going to take the East, but that's another sneaky team as well.
Well, we always say that the Hornets are sort of like that team that they just needed that extra gear, and they're getting that. I mean, LaMelo is led the way with 29, and also too, I think you got a really solid. You gotta look. You have a nice, solid, young group of young players. I think Michael Jordan has finally got like his that core together. With LaMelo Ball and Plumlee and Miles Bridges, and also Terry Rozier. He's kind of been that veteran presence for them.
Scary
too,
Terry.
Yeah. So, like I said before, can they keep it up? Again, I'm sure they're going to be right there within that play-in tournament. So,
and going out west. Speaking of the Western Conference, the Utah Jazz, they suffered a big home loss to the Phoenix Suns on Wednesday, 105-97. Of course, Donovan Mitchell is out. Looks like Rudy Gobert is going to miss tonight's game as well. We'll give you the weekend schedule in just a moment, but. Look, Kenny, we always say about the Utah Jazz, prove it to us in the playoffs. They still have a top record. The Phoenix Suns are for real. Utah is going through their first major haul of the season now.
And I think there were like a couple of games this week where they didn't have their starting lineup or most of their starting lineup. I know Ingles, didn't play that first game, and also too, of course, Mitchell's still in concussion protocols, so they're doing what they can. But again, I think Phoenix to show you why they're for real. But so we'll see what happens with Utah. I mean, hopefully they can get everybody back. Hopefully they can get Mitchell back, and hopefully maybe this is a good thing that they're going through this right now, because I think that they're ready. I think they're kind of like, I don't want to say wait for the playoffs, but I think they're sort of like right there to see if they can kind of get over that playoff hump. Now let's talk about this weekend's games coming up. On tonight you've got Detroit and Orlando. Of course, the first game of the ESPN doubleheader should be a good one. You got the Lakers. LeBron might play tonight. I know he's got some soreness in his knees. We'll figure. Maybe who knows if AD will play tonight as well. Charlotte, that should be a fun one. Boston and Atlanta, and out east. That should be a pretty good.
Yeah, the Hawks are slowly creeping back up to the 500 round. They're 3 under right now.
Yeah, they beat the Kings. The Kings are kind of in free fall, so that's not really saying much. Denver and New Orleans. It's a 7:00 game. This should be a good one. Clippers and Miami. I'm thinking that maybe Miami. They had a nice win against New York a couple of days ago. So we'll see if they can kind of keep that up. I know Portland's starting their East Coast road trip. They're coming off a loss to Dallas by 20. So Houston, that'll be interesting. Utah and Memphis. I know Utah's not at full strength, but that should be a good one. Nonetheless.
John Morant, a dark horse candidate for MVP. I said it the last couple episodes. I'm just saying.
Well, I don't know if that's like I said before. He was gone for I think like 4 weeks, and they played pretty well without him. So I'm just saying. Indiana, OKC, of course, the Bulls and the Spurs, Minnesota fans. That should be a fun one, and New York and Milwaukee. The start time at 9:00. Now you know how Chicago. Now you guys gonna realize how Chicago felt in Milwaukee.
Take that. Let's go to Saturday night's schedule, which is tomorrow. The Celtics will play the New Orleans Pelicans at 6:00, followed by the Pacers and the Mavericks at the same time. Speaking of Sacramento, Lakeena, they'll travel to Philadelphia to take on the Sixers. The Sixers have been on the roll as of late. The Raptors will travel to Miami to take on the Heat at 7:00. The Wizards will face the Grizzlies down there in Memphis at 7:00. ABC will make its season debut for Saturday Night Hoops. We'll have the Brooklyn Nets against the Golden State Warriors.
I know, even without Katie, that should still be a fun one. So you got Harden, you got Kyrie, so that should be a fun one, even still, without KD. Going to Sunday, a lot of these matches are right before, be the appetizer for the championship games in the NFL. Lakers in Atlanta, again, assuming, LeBron will be able to play and AD will be able to play. That should be a fun one against.
Yeah, the majority of those fans would be quote unquote Laker fans with LeBron and Kobe jerseys on.
in Atlanta. So that should be a fun one at noon. Clippers and Hornets, that should be a good one. The Portland Chicago game, like I talked about, note to start time at 2:30, so that's an early game, folks. And Cleveland faces Detroit. That should be a good one. The battle of the young guns.
Yes, and wrapping up that Sunday night schedule, the Mavericks at the Magic at 6 p.m. The Nuggets at the Bucks. This should be a good one, right in the middle of that NFC Championship. Yeah, I'll definitely have this game on my computer screen. That's at 6:00 on Sunday night. At 7:00, the injured Utah Jazz will travel to Minnesota to face the Timberwolves. And at 7:00, the San Antonio Spurs will travel to Phoenix to take on the red-hot Phoenix Suns. So that's your schedule for the NBA for this weekend.
All right, let's go to the college hardwood real quick now that we got a few minutes. Got some big games coming up this weekend, but what kind of caught your attention this week in college hoops?
Oh, Lakeena, Michigan, they barely beat Northwestern. I know we talked about their struggles, but they got by Northwestern earlier this week. So Michigan, Juwan Howard, shout out to him. He's trying to get Michigan back into the fold right before the Big Ten tournament. Let's see if they can make a late season run. Illinois, I want to talk about this game. I watched this in its entirety on Tuesday. They beat the Michigan State Spartans 56-55. I like the kid Alonzo Plummer, number 11. Watch out for him. I know Kofi Coburn missed that game as well due to concussion protocol. Hopefully he'll be back soon. But Lakeena, the last Illinois point came on a free throw with 5.5 minutes left. It's a tribute to the Illini defense and Michigan just not knowing what to do down the stretch to have Illinois win the game without scoring a basket in the last 5.5 minutes.
Yeah, that was
because in the first half, Michigan State was getting up a lot of offensive rebounds. Illinois, along with Michigan State, and at various points in that second half, both went through bad shooting slumps, but Illinois barely held on for the win. I think it's going to boost their confidence from here on out.
This should help. And like I said, for that Big Ten conference is still very wide open. So, Illinois getting that win, without Cockburn. And, look, Trent Frazier picked up the slack and leading the way with 16. So, like
he really makes that team go.
He does. He really does. He's sort of like that facilitator. He's kind of like the Zach LaVine of that Illinois team. So it'll be interesting to see what they do because they got like a big game this weekend. But, we'll get to that in a second. Villanova, just hammered DePaul, by 24 in that night game. And Look, I don't know about DePaul. I know they were out their top scorer right now,
Mhm.
but I think they're starting to fall back to earth a little bit, especially with Villanova hitting their three. So then they're hard to beat. They kick it into gear in the second half. Let's see what else.
Yeah,
You
Kentucky got by Mississippi State
Yeah.
82-74 in overtime on Tuesday. I did check some of that out. Mississippi State, the Bulldogs are not a bad team. They gave the Wildcats all they could handle on their own court.
Yeah, they have a pretty good squad there, but it wasn't enough.
Hmm.
UCLA with just pulling away late from after that game. UCLA pulled away from Arizona. This was a makeup game. Of course, they rarely play games on Tuesday, but unfortunately, Johnny Juzang is now in COVID protocol. So now that's going to become an issue again. So, Baylor with a nice win against K State. Duke edging out Clemson
Hmm.
by a bucket during that game. Providence, going on Wednesday, Providence just edging out Xavier. That was a fun one. Tennessee pulled away from Florida. LSU beat the Texas A&M Aggies. The Fighting Shaka Smarts showing you that they're for real. They beat Seton Hall by 10.
Yeah, and a big day from the Big Ten squads from Thursday, which was yesterday. Wisconsin got by Nebraska in a makeup game 73-65. I said watch out for this team. They're ranked 16th in the country. Ohio State, the Buckeyes, get by Minnesota 75-64. And Purdue continues to chase Illinois for the best record in the conference. The number 6 Boilermakers in the country, they dominated Iowa by 10, 83-73.
Yeah, Mr. EJ Liddell for the Buckeyes, so I'm sure Buckeye fans were happy that he decided to come back. UCLA, pulls away from Cal. Also to Stanford, once again, they sweep the season series against USC. They beat them by 3, so that might help them, for tournament time. But we'll see. Going into games for this weekend. Let's see here. A couple of good ones on, mostly Patriot League stuff. Duke versus Louisville. They're going through a lot of turmoil right now. Chris Mack, was let go, and then now they're everything's kind of the wheels just falling off for that Louisville program. So just unfortunate. LSU and TCU, that should be a fun one. Loyola defying Tim Leggers faces Davidson, who had a loss earlier this week. Michigan State. That's the first game on CBS doubleheader. 11:30. That should be a fun one. Let's see, Xavier and Creighton. They're doing the Big 12 SEC challenge, I should say. I don't know why they're doing that in the middle of the season. Don't ask me. Oklahoma, the Fighting Port Moses against Auburn. That should be a fun one. Big 12, Big 12 matchup here. You got Missouri and Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to those days in the Big 12 when they faced each other, they had some good games. Arizona State, I should say. That's the second game. That's CBS doubleheader in the Pac-12 at 1:30.
At 3:30 on Saturday on the Big Ten Network, we'll have number 24, Illinois, the Fighting Illini will travel to Evanston to face Chicago's Big Ten team, Northwestern. They're in free fall right now. They're at 9-9. Illinois checks in at 14-5. At 5 o'clock on CBS, part of the SEC Big 12 Challenge, Kentucky will face Kansas. That should be a fun. Well, speaking of DePaul, at 5:30 tomorrow on FS1, they'll face number 20, UConn. And USC, ranked 15th in the country, they'll take on California on the Pac-12 Network at 6 o'clock. And rounding out the Saturday schedule in the top 25, Gonzaga will host University of Portland at 8 o'clock. And on the Pac-12 Network at 8:30 p.m., number 7, UCLA will host the Stanford Cardinal.
Also to Baylor versus Alabama in that Big 12 SEC Challenge. I know that Alabama's kind of had their struggles there, but that should be a good one down there in Tuscaloosa. Yeah, and Stanford and UCLA. I know, like I said before, Johnny Juzang is now in COVID protocol, so we'll just see how Stanford does. Stanford actually played them pretty close in their first meeting, so we'll see what happens there. Now, in the Sunday games, you got a really good one here on CBS right before the AFC title game. Ohio State and Purdue, number 16 versus number 6. That should be a fun one down there in West Lafayette.
Yeah, who's going to make the big stop defensively? I think that's what's going to come down to. We know Purdue can score the ball, especially inside. They can shoot it a little bit as well, but Ohio State, as I mentioned, watch out for them. This should be a great battle. I'm definitely be tuning into this one live.
Absolutely. Good one here in the Big East. That's going to be 11:30 on FS1. You got number 22 Marquette, of course, the Fighting Shaka Smarts against Providence.
And wrapping up the top 25 schedule on the Big Ten Network at high noon, we had the Minnesota Golden Gophers traveling to Wisconsin to take on the Badgers. They're ranked number 11 in the country. The Wisconsin Badgers are checking in with a 16-3 mark on the season.
And also to the Missouri Valley, we don't want to get for the Loyola Chicago Ramblers. They face Drake. Drake's actually, they're right there too. They're kind of like in the top 3 in the Missouri Valley, so that should be a fun one in Iowa.
Yeah, so that is your weekend schedule from the world of college basketball. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 is straight ahead. When we return, Mr. Kaelin Jones, a staff writer from The Ringer who covers the NFL for that great website, will join us to give us his thoughts about the new Chicago Bears hires, along with his Championship Sunday NFL playoff picks. And we'll have our buddy Christine Manika joining us as well at the bottom of next hour, along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. That's me. You listen to these hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports, live and in living color, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA tonight, the Bulls take on the Raptors. Chicago, a half game out of first place in the East, 29-17 overall. Struggling lately, they've dropped 7 of 10. The Raptors coming off a win. They're 6 games out of first, a game over 500, 23-22. Last night, they beat the Hornets 125-113 in Toronto. Tonight's matchup at United Center scheduled for a 7 o'clock tip-off. The Blackhawks are winless in 4 on the road tonight, visiting the Red Wings, 6:30 Central, puck drop. The Hawks coming off a 2-0 shutout at Colorado on Monday night. Goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury reportedly receiving interest from the Washington Capitals as the trade deadline approaches. College basketball last night, big upset for number 24 Illinois, 56-55 over number 10 Michigan State. Loyola Chicago beat SIU 59-47. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Deep breaths.
Mi's virtual meditation studio has never been busier.
Imagine not working.
They need a remote assistant to realign their scheduling.
Blank calendar. Sorry, back to your breath.
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Make calls, schedule virtual interviews, and talk to candidates right from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, this is Discover, and we take customer service very seriously. We know that if you have a question or concern about your credit card, that's a serious matter, and you need to talk to a real person about it. So we offer around-the-clock access to seriously talented representatives in the USA. Again, it's a serious endeavor. The only funny thing about it is Bob. If you call us and Bob answers, you're in for a treat. Get 100% US-based customer service and talk to a real person day or night. Discover. Exceptionally common sense.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of the hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports, live and in living color, right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee. I am Cindy Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
Follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
If you have a question or comment for us during our now less than 60 minutes left in the program, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. As we await our guest, Lakeena, well, we'll give you guys our picks with when Christina hops on with us later on this hour for a Championship Sunday. Lakeena, I want to get in depth into the previews of both title games this coming Sunday. We'll start in the AFC at 2:00 p.m. on CBS. We'll have the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Cincinnati Bengals for the AFC title game. Lakeena, we talked about on our last episode what happened between the Chiefs and the Bills. We won't go through that again too much. The Bengals pulled out a shocker, according to some people. It wasn't a shocker to your sure. I picked them last week. Just saying. The Bengals upset the Titans on the road last week. What are your keys to the game for this Sunday for both teams?
Keeping Joe Burrow upright. Yeah, that's the key. I think, yes, they were able to get away with it against the Titans, but you're not going to be able to do that against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are very opportunistic defense. So you don't want to look. You want to make sure Burrow doesn't lose the game by having him sacked. So if it's sort of one of those things where you hope that maybe Kenny Pickett maybe pull one off. But again, we'll just have to wait and see as we got our guest on the line with us. Sid, please introduce him for us.
Yes, he's a staff writer for The Ringer. He covers the NFL for that great website. You can follow him on all social media accounts at Kaelin Jones, and he tweets out some great thoughts and great information on his Twitter account. Please welcome in Mr. Kaelin Jones. Sir, welcome to our program. How are you today?
Well, guys, thanks for having me. Sorry for showing up a little bit late. Appreciate the patience.
No, it's fine.
Pulled up a little bit late.
No, it's okay. Look, I've done that too. So, Kaelin, so don't feel bad about that. Now, Kaelin, let's talk about the Bears for a second, since we are,
Sure.
This is based in Chicago. What do you think about this move? Ryan Poles, the new GM, Matt Eberflus. I'm sure he'll correct it once they do the press next week. So, what do you think about these hires for the Bears?
I'm really intrigued. I actually thought they were going to go offensive in terms of the head coaching decision, but when you look at Eberflus, when you look at consider Ryan Poles, their background, specifically Poles coming from Kansas City, Eberflus having dealt with Indianapolis, being a guy who's been around Doug Peterson not Doug Peterson, their head coach for the past couple of years, who comes from that Doug Peterson tree. You're expecting that, they have some type of understanding that Justin Fields is the focal point, like he's the foundation for what they want to do moving forward. And I like them bringing in Eberflus, even though you probably have to adjust your scheme. I know that last season, I believe you guys were running more of a 3-4. Now they're going to be running more of a 4-3. So adjusting for the personnel will be interesting. But that being said, I mean, the track record speaks for itself. Even though you never really see high sack rates with Eberflus's group, they always generate turnovers. And Indianapolis has always been, in that above average to very good tier of defenses since he's been there. So I think it's an interesting move. Not the sexiest, but it's definitely interesting.
Kaelin, me and Lakeena both said that the hire of the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears is very important. We heard names floating around like Jim Caldwell, and of course Dan Quinn was floated around. We all thought he was going to get the job. That didn't turn out to be. But if you were running the Bears, who would you hire as an offensive coordinator to hopefully tailor a system that fits Justin Fields' skill set?
I'd love to see if they could get Pep Hamilton. I think that was the name that was floated around this morning, actually, from Aaron Wilson over Pro Football Network. I think Pep has shown that he has a track record dealing with young quarterbacks, both with Andrew Luck, I believe, in Indianapolis, and then last season or the year before with Justin Herbert in Los Angeles with the Chargers. So I think he'd be a really interesting name to, consider for the offensive coordinator position. The thing is, you don't want to pick someone, in my opinion, who will eventually, maybe not eventually, but too soon leave the organization, because I think, you want some continuity for a young quarterback going year over year. So I think it's really interesting how the Giants have handled, the whole Daniel Jones situation. Their GM, or I believe their owner, admitted to the fact that, they haven't really set him up for success. And I think you could say the same thing about Justin Fields at this point. He hasn't been set up for success. That being said, I think if you get Pep Hamilton, I don't know if he's going to be a name that's in, high demand, regardless of the success that he has in his initial years in Chicago, if he were to get hired there. But I think, again, like I said, track record and considering his success with young quarterbacks, I think Pep Hamilton would be a really, really strong name to consider if you're Chicago.
Now, how about personnel changes? I feel like they're gonna have $30 million in cap space, wants to get rid of a lot of the dead money. Will they have to maybe pull off trades, like maybe get rid of a Khalil Mack or somebody like that to kind of, they're not going to contend next year. I think we can all kind of agree on that. But what say you, Kaelin?
I think it's going to be tough. Like you said, maybe offloading Khalil Mack, I think that's got to be priority for them. Unfortunately, I don't think it's been necessarily a bust as far as his time in Chicago, but definitely are going to have to, readjust, the numbers and such on the cap, moving forward, because again, you want to maximize the time that you have with a rookie quarterback. That's the name of the game now for a lot of these teams, is to, build up championship caliber teams while quarterbacks are still under rookie contracts or on cheaper deals. So agree with you. I think that it is of the utmost importance for Chicago to do that. I'm curious to see like which veteran defensive players they're able to keep, but I don't think you want to tear too much down on that side of the football. I'd be shocked if they were able to keep Allen Robinson, like you mentioned, but I think that, that's definitely got to be a priority moving forward. I think that it helps, again, that you hire a guy like Ryan Poles who has success and has shown the ability to maneuver with the cap, or at least has experience in the building where, like Kansas City, where they've been able to attain so much star power and still have, a usable cap.
Mr. Kaelin Jones, who covers the NFL for The Ringer, is just joining us right here on the hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live and in living color. Sid, Lakeena here with you on Sports Zone Chicago. Kaelin, the Minnesota Vikings hired a young GM as well, just like the Chicago Bears. He's also African-American. I assume that the NFL's diversity and hiring committee is moving in the right direction. I know they still have the running rule in place that you must interview at least one minority candidate, but can we say that the NFL's finally gotten it right, or do we still have to waste some more time to see if this process is playing out?
It's a good question, right? Like I was thinking about this the other day, actually. Like I think it's still a little bit more of a wait and see, in my opinion, just because, when you consider the demographics of the NFL and the players that are out in the field, it's over 60% Black. And then when you consider the number of GMs and head coaches that are in the NFL right now that are Black, it's not representative of, the workforce. And so I am encouraged by the fact that, again, we've seen two young Black GMs, like you mentioned, Ryan Poles and Adolfo Mensa with Minnesota Vikings. I'm definitely encouraged by that, because the important thing for, Black people in the NFL working around football is that you have people who are in positions of power. And I think, when you're a GM, you have, I think you're at least on par, if not a little bit more power than the head coach does. So it is encouraging from that aspect, just because you have so much control over player personnel. And I think, moving forward, if this becomes not just a trend, but if this becomes like a normal thing, we aren't just seeing like, Andrew Berry and Chris Greer in Miami, in addition to these two that have just been hired. I'm definitely encouraged by the fact that these were the first two that I can think of that were picked as GMs. And it's definitely encouraging, but it's still wait and see for me, especially when you consider that the NFL, as from the head coaching position itself, the guys who are dealing with the players one-on-one every single day, there's only Mike Tomlin to this point, and which it shouldn't take, being exceptional to be a head coach in the NFL. There's so many former players that have the mind for being able to hold a head coaching job. There needs to be a little bit more patience that's shown to other head coaches, in my opinion, who are white. For example, like even we can go back to Anthony Lynn for all of the silly mistakes that happened for the Chargers, in that final year. That was really only the year for me where I watched the Chargers and was like, the results aren't there. I know that even in previous seasons where you had those moments of, what's going on here, dysfunction, the results were good enough to where he probably should have been a head coach. If you consider like some of his peers, such as like Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona, even with Chicago's former head coach, granted he got a Coach of the Year award and got them to the playoffs in his first year, he got a little bit more leeway. So it'd be nice to see some of that, patience be extended to Black candidates and head coaches in the league to this point. So until that changes, until we see more people who are stakeholders and, position of power be Black, be picked out, or Black people are picked, it's still very much, hesitancy from me personally, as far as the NFL, changing its tune.
I totally agree with you on that, Kaelin. Now, speaking of, with a lot of the jobs that have not been filled yet, which one is the most intriguing to you? You feel?
I think I would have said Chicago. That's the funny part. Probably Jacksonville right now, just because I don't think they've gone about it right as far as like how they've handled it, because it seems like they don't necessarily have an idea of what specifically they want. But that being said, I appreciate the fact that they've cast out a really wide net, and this is a really pivotal decision for them. Obviously, getting a top pick, already having Trevor Lawrence in tow. I'd be really curious to see like if they go head coach who have of an offensive mind, so that way you have someone who's there year over year to stick with not Justin Herbert, might be Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, and build up year over year with him. I'd be curious to see like if they choose to go offense with Byron Leftwich. Waiting to see if that happens. I'm also curious to see what happens with the GM position. Obviously, moving on from Trent Baalke over the past few days, like that is a really significant decision for them. I just am really curious because when you look at the state of the AFC South too, when you consider the teams that are there, obviously the Colts are a very good team. Titans continue to win the division over and over again. But even I don't consider them to be the most talented team in the world. Credit to Mike Vrabel for doing what he's done. And then you have the Houston Texans, who are currently in disarray too. I think that division is there to be won. And, I can very quickly see the Jaguars, turning things around if they are able to hire the right head coach. And I think that could end up being Leftwich. And I like that they're even looking into Vic Fangio. And if they're able to bring him in as a defensive coordinator, you could really see that unit turn around very quickly. And I think you could get quick results in terms of winning, in terms of the winning column, if you're Jacksonville, if you make the right hire here.
Speaking of another team that needs a new head coach, that's the New Orleans Saints. Of course, Sean Payton decides to step down with 2 years remaining on his contract. He may go the broadcasting route. He may not. He can just sit out a year or two to see what the landscape is. In my personal opinion, I like to play conspiracy theories, if you will, every once in a while for entertainment purposes only. I can see if Mike McCarthy at Dallas has the same track record as they did this past season. Maybe they win a playoff game, but lose to a team they're not supposed to lose to in the playoffs. They look real bad. I can see if Mr. Jerry Jones wants it, Sean Payton just going in there and taking over the Dallas Cowboys. What say you? Because I think this is what it smells like to me.
Yeah, Jerry Jones is trying to, talk about how Mike McCarthy's job has never been in question at this point. And sure, this cycle, I believe in. That being said, if Sean Payton is available during the next cycle and Mike McCarthy isn't able to get the results that, the Cowboys are looking for, which, really is Super Bowl or bust, considering the talent that they have on their roster, they could definitely turn to Sean Payton. And I think, that's probably the most valid speculation, I think, for everybody across media is, consider whether the Cowboys would make that move, because it's a splashy enough move to where it very much fits with Jerry Jones' persona and the Dallas Cowboys brand. And at the same time, it makes sense just from a head coaching and fit standpoint. Assuming, let's say Kellen Moore gets a head coaching gig. I know that he's interviewing with the Dolphins sometime soon. Dan Quinn is deciding to stay, but let's say, they need a new head coach who is able to pair with their quarterback. And I think Sean Payton has shown, the way that he's been able to work with Drew Brees over the course of his career, and then even win without him in the lineup with guys like Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill, he's able to make offenses hum. And so I think he'd be a really natural fit. I think he's also a smart enough guy to get the right defensive hire in there if Dan Quinn were, to move on and the staff was not able to stay there in Dallas. So I think that, the Sean Payton, the Cowboys speculation is very valid. At the same time, I would say that it is interesting for the Cowboys' sake that Quinn is staying. So I think the defense should play at a very similar level in terms of being able to generate turnovers and hold opposing offenses to low scores. But the key here is whether or not they're able to keep Kellen Moore. And if he's gone, then you could see, maybe some cracks in the Dallas Cowboys' success, especially when you consider Philadelphia outperformed expectations this year and probably could be better next year. Washington, a lot of people expected them to be good and weren't. Again, the Giants are reloading, but we're assuming that they could get on the right track sooner rather than later. So, it's going to be a really big year for Mike McCarthy in terms of proving that he should, continue to maintain the Cowboys head coaching job, especially after underperforming expectations this year, in my opinion.
Okay, Kaelin, let's get right to the championship Sunday. Of course, first game up in the AFC, you got the Bengals, making their first AFC championship appearance since 1988, and the Chiefs going, to the AFC Championship for the championship game for the 4th straight year. Now, there might be a few people that might want to say that there could be an upset here. What do you think?
I have a hard time thinking there's going to be an upset. When you consider that Week 17 contest, granted, Joe Burrow played out of his mind, and I think Jamar Chase was an absolute difference maker for them. But at the same time, the Chiefs only scored 3 points in the second half. They really seemed to shoot themselves in the foot at times when you talk about the penalties that they were committing. A lot of them came on third down. One prevented a long kickoff return, too. So when you consider how well the Kansas City Chiefs played, maybe, that speaks to the Bengals' ability to overcome how, a really talented Kansas City Chiefs team. But at the same time, this one's going to be an Arrowhead. I don't imagine, Patrick Mahomes coming down too far from the level that he played last week against the Buffalo Bills. And that being said, I just think that the Chiefs have too much firepower for Cincinnati to keep up. But the key for them will be, what goes on within the trenches. DJ Reader will have to have a big game. Trey Hendrickson will have to have a big game. And at the same time, the Bengals defense, they will have to capitalize on any turnover opportunities that come their way. They weren't able to in that first matchup, and, they still ended up winning the football game. But this is a different, type of beast when you go into Arrowhead and you're playing Patrick Mahomes. So I am leaning Chiefs. I believe in Joe Burrow, and for whatever intangibles you want to say about him, I do think he has the it factor, and I think that speaks a lot to the success that they've had this season. But that being said, I just think that the Chiefs are very experienced, and Patrick Mahomes is playing at too high of a level for them to where they shouldn't lose this weekend.
Kaelin Jones from The Ringer, who covers the NFL, is joining us right here on Second City Sports on the hashtag Football Friday edition. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. Let's go to the NFC Championship game between the 49ers and the Rams, Kaelin. Of course, the Rams have they have lost to the 49ers, rather, the last 6 times. We saw what the 49ers did to them this season. The Rams almost gave that game away last week against Tampa Bay, because we all know what the 49ers did up north against Green Bay. What are your keys to victory for both teams?
Yeah, so the keys to the game for San Francisco will be, establish the run. And they've been able to do that in each of the matchups that they've played against the Rams over the past 3 years. Kyle Shanahan 6-0 against Sean McVay over the past 3 seasons. And a lot of that has come, down to their ability to kind of neutralize Aaron Donald in the run game. They do a lot of their wide zone offensive schemes. Those principles really get away from the defensive tackle and put, those edge defenders in conflict. And guys like Von Miller and Leonard Floyd, for as talented as pass rushers as they are, they're more finesse guys. They're not guys who want to get, too involved in the run fits and whatnot. And that puts a lot of stress on the linebackers and safeties at the second level. In that second matchup, we saw Kyle Shanahan and the Niners really exploit that. The linebackers and safeties for the Rams really struggled with tackling. And, I think that will be, something that Shanahan looks to exploit again in this matchup. At the same time, even if the run game isn't there, it could come down to how well Jimmy Garoppolo plays. Like I mentioned, Aaron Donald is, maybe not too much of a factor in the run game consistently, but in the pass game, we've seen each of the past 2 contests that they played this year, Donald was a force getting pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo, as was Von Miller. So I think that, Shanahan will have to find a way to neutralize the edge as well as Aaron Donald from the inside. But I expect to see a lot of Elijah Mitchell, going into this contest. And then for the Rams, it'll come down to how well they can play without getting in their own way. We saw them build a really big lead in that second contest, and it was really on the back of, Matthew Stafford being able to push the ball downfield and them being really efficient in the passing game. What they got away from in the second half was leaning on Stafford and being aggressive. They started trying to run the football. The Rams offensive line isn't really built to be a power run football team or even a wide zone running football team. They're meant to be more of a finesse pass blocking group. And so unfortunately for them in that second half, they got away from that and allowed San Francisco, with all their experience, to climb back into that contest. And so, so long as McVay doesn't get in his own way, I feel like the Rams have enough talent offensively to where they should be able to jump out to a similar lead, just like we saw last week against Tampa Bay and just like we saw in week 18 against San Francisco. But again, it's why people ask Sean McVay this week, even if it is kind of a dorky question, whether Kyle Shanahan is in his head, because even if he says he isn't, the past few matchups have shown that he is. And so if McVay can keep his foot, on the gas and keep that offense, try to put the game away going through the second half, I think that the Rams have enough offensive firepower to where they can come away with the win there.
And interesting about some of those coaching openings. Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network does a great job. Just tweeted that Josh McCown, former NFL quarterback, also former Bears quarterback, among many other teams, he's a finalist for the Texans job. So what do you think about that, Kaelin?
That's a really interesting one, right? We've seen kind of I'll be speculative here, like the politics have gone on with Houston in terms of them hiring people who they know and are comfortable and familiar with within that building, whether it's Jack Easterby or Nick Caserio. Obviously, David Coley's firing was a shock, and he probably didn't deserve to get fired considering he overperformed with a mercenary Texans team that no one expected to win more than maybe 1 or 2 games this season. I'm not too surprised by the link of Josh McCown to the Texans just based on his previous comments and appreciation for guys like Caserio and Jack Easterby to the media. So I'm really curious to see if that were to be the hire that they make. It could be interesting just because, again, he's a former NFL player, has a lot of experience. Had a high pedigree coming out of college. So I would be interested to see how that would fit. At the same time, I still am a little concerned with, what's going on, behind the scenes in Houston, with the ownership and the leadership there. So it could be a good hire. It could be a bad hire, but I am more concerned with what's going on with Easterby and Caserio and what will come of that moving forward.
Last moment or two with Kaelin Jones from the Ringer talking NFL with us here on Second City Sports on the hashtag Football Friday right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Last question from me, Kaelin. Aaron Rodgers, of course, his season ended last Saturday with the loss to San Francisco. And, of course, his former OC is now the new head coach of the Denver Broncos. Many, including yours truly, think that Aaron Rodgers will find his way over to Denver, maybe Devontae Adams as well if he doesn't get the franchise tag. What say you about the future of Mr. Aaron Rodgers?
Look, man, I think the best thing he can do is stay in Green Bay, right? To me, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, and even if, I'm a back-to-back MVP, I'm looking at the Broncos, and in the vision, you've got Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, and Patrick Mahomes, and you got to play those guys twice, per season. I just think it's a really tough, not only division, but then you look at the rest of the conference, Josh Allen and the Bills, Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, Joe Burrow and the Bengals. There's just so many other elite quarterbacks within the conference that make your pathway towards a championship so much more difficult. So to me, I think it makes a lot of sense to find a way to stay in Green Bay. Like you mentioned, Devontae Adams leaving, potentially that could be a significant factor for Aaron Rodgers. And I think he actually mentioned that the other day on Pat McAfee's show. But, to me, the logical thing is to, make nice with everyone in Green Bay, which, all the reports suggest that he has over the past year. And, make it work in Green Bay and try to make another run at a championship. Because, if they had not run into a San Francisco team that was a really bad matchup for them, they would have had a really good shot at reaching the Super Bowl. I think they matched up really well with the Rams. I think they match up well with the Buccaneers. And so, I don't know. I think, and especially when you consider Tom Brady might be considering leaving the NFC. There's just a much easier pathway if you're Aaron Rodgers to stay in Green Bay and try to contend for a Super Bowl title there, as opposed to going to the AFC and making the road a little bit more difficult for yourself. But again, I understand we're human beings. He's allowed to feel the emotions that he's felt for Green Bay's front office. And, we'll see whether or not he stays. But logically, man, I wouldn't leave the NFC.
I agree with you. You can read his stuff on the Ringer and at Ringer NFL. He is Kaelin Jones. Kaelin, where people can find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Kaelin Jones, KAELENJONES. Thank you guys for having me. It's been a blast. Seriously, appreciate
This is
it.
a lot of fun. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Kaelin. Stay safe.
Of course, likewise. Stay safe.
All right, take care.
Okay.
All right. Once again, that was Kaelin Jones from The Ringer. He covers the NFL for that great website. Check out his work and, of course, follow him on social media. Lakeena, the interview was too hot, but it was great. We need to cool off for a couple minutes. On the flip side, we'll bring in our buddy Christine Manika from KXRB Radio in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We'll get her championship Sunday picks, and we got some fun subjects from the world of sports and beyond to discuss with her as well. Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You listen to the hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA tonight, the Bulls take on the Raptors. Chicago, a half game out of first place in the East, 29-17 overall. Struggling lately, they've dropped 7 of 10. The Raptors coming off a win. They're 6 games out of first, a game over 500, 23-22. Last night, they beat the Hornets 125-113 in Toronto. Tonight's matchup at United Center scheduled for a 7 o'clock tip-off. The Blackhawks are winless in 4 on the road tonight, visiting the Red Wings, 6:30 Central. Puck drop. The Hawks coming off a 2-0 shutout at Colorado on Monday night. Goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury reportedly receiving interest from the Washington Capitals as the trade deadline approaches. College basketball last night, big upset for number 24 Illinois, 56-55 over number 10 Michigan State. Loyola Chicago beat SIU 59-47. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Deep breaths.
Mi's virtual meditation studio has never been busier.
Imagine not working.
They need a remote assistant to realign their scheduling.
Blank calendar. Sorry, back to your breath.
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Make calls, schedule virtual interviews, and talk to candidates right from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, this is Discover, and we take customer service very seriously. We know that if you have a question or concern about your credit card, that's a serious matter, and you need to talk to a real person about it. So we offer around-the-clock access to seriously talented representatives in the USA. Again, it's a serious endeavor. The only funny thing about it is Bob. If you call us and Bob answers, you're in for a treat. Get 100% US-based customer service and talk to a real person day or night. Discover. Exceptionally common sense.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on the hashtag Football Friday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid and Lakeena are here with you. And joining us as she usually does around this time for our last segment of the show on Fridays is our good buddy, Chicago's very own Christine Manika from KXRB Radio in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Hi, Christine.
What's up? What's up?
How's it going? How's the weather in Sioux Falls? Because we got like 3 or 4 inches of lake effect.
Yes, we did.
Some of you folks still don't know how to drive. And that's you folks have been living here all your lives.
I know. It's sunny here in the high 30s, so we're all good over here.
Oh gosh, well that's balmy. We'll take that at this point. But
Right.
it's not too bad here though. Like you said, so we had that that lake effect snow earlier, but like you said, I know my sister is one of the hates driving the snow, but that's a
So do I.
Well, yeah, who does? But yeah, that's a whole
Right.
whole nother story. We'll get to Chrissy. I know you have your thoughts about the Bears, new GM and coach, but we'll get to that in a second. Kind of a little tease at there. But first things first, business here. The first, championship Sunday coming up this Sunday. This is probably one of our favorite times of year. All right, first up, you got the Cincy and the Kansas City Chiefs. They played in Week 15, if people forget, and the Chiefs actually, the Bengals actually beat the Chiefs. It was a last second, I guess, a touchdown drive. I think so.
Field goal.
A field goal. Well, it led to a field goal. I think it was Burrow to. I think it was Chase that set up that field goal for them. But yeah, to pull that upset. But Sid, I'll start with you. Where do you see this game?
A couple of keys for me for Kansas City. Can you get the ball running with Darrell Williams, and can you continue to convert on third down, especially in short yardage situations? They've been doing that to the T all year. You saw that last week against Buffalo. On the flip side for Cincinnati, as you mentioned, can you keep Joe Burrow upright? He was sacked 9 times, and they got away with it last week. They won't be able to get away with that on Sunday. And Joe Mixon, even though he scored a touchdown last week, you have to give him the rock and keep that Kansas City defense honest. He has to rush to close to 100 yards for Cincinnati to have any chance. Do they have the talent to possibly get in a shootout with Kansas City like Buffalo did last week? They can, but I don't think they're strong enough. So my pick is I'm going with Kansas City. I told you at the start of the season I expected the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. I'm still going to stick with that. I think it's going to be surprisingly close early, but I think Kansas City is going to pull away in the fourth quarter. Kansas City is currently favored by 7, and the over-under total for this game stands at 54.5.
All right, Christine.
First of all, it was just every single game last week was incredible.
Right.
You could not have asked for any other games than that. That should be just a Super Bowl right there. 4 games at once. Let's see who wins. But any team that's in there right now, these 4 teams, they all deserve to be there in some way. So either way, the Super Bowl is going to be great. When it comes to the Chiefs and Bengals, I should have stuck with my Bengals last week. I should have changed my mind and I should have stuck with it because I did not get any picks last week. So I just sucked all around the board. This is going to be a big passing game for sure. Now, here's the deal. Mahomes, he's averaging about 310 passing yards. And then during the playoff situations, he's got 391 average for passing yards. So, and the same thing goes with Joe Burrow. He's not too far behind Mahomes in this. So expect a lot of passing and making this a strong passing game. Now, the Bengals won this game to clinch that AFC North title. So that was a big win for them in itself. So I'm assuming Kansas is going to want to take charge and take that back, saying, hey, now we're going to go to the Super Bowl. You have the title, but we're going to the Super Bowl. So I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting game. What's cool for Joe Burrow is that he's going to be the first QB drafted first overall to start in a conference championship game. So that's going to be awesome for him. I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I wouldn't count the Bengals out totally, but I think because of the team, each team, and where I'm looking at, like veteran wise and who's been in situations like this before, I got to go with the Chiefs. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals won, but I'm picking the Chiefs.
If the defense for the Bengals can be opportunistic like they were last week, they picked off Ryan Tannehill 3 times. Can they do the same thing against Pat Mahomes? That's going to be a tough task. As we've been saying, can the O-line keep Joe Burrow upright? I know he can improvise a lot. He can, he has Mixon that he can hand the ball off to, but that's going to be the key. And also, too, I think the Chiefs, they feel like I don't think they're going to feel like they're going to coast. This is a veteran squad, so I don't think they're going to feel like, oh, well, this is the Chiefs, or we'll just it's the Bengals, so we'll just they're going to be nervous. So this is their 4th time, with their old hats at this. I don't think it's going to be it. I say take the under, which is like the 7. I take the under. I'm not going to say it's going to come down to like a touchdown drive, like or a field goal, like it was in their first meeting. But you know what? If you're the Chiefs, I think you don't want to take this Bengals team lightly. They have this mentality of why not us, and I think they're going to follow that. But I think the Chiefs will do just enough. This could go to overtime again. I think Chiefs again will probably pull it off.
Let's give Christine credit here. When the Kansas City and Cincinnati met toward the end of the regular season, she said it was going to be a preview of the AFC title game.
Yes,
that's why you watch and listen to Second City Sports. We tell you some things are going to happen before they happen. And look, here we are.
For once, you're giving me credit on something.
Oh, for once, okay.
For once,
snarky. But we love it.
All right, going to probably the game. Both these games should be good, but I think this is definitely going to be the game. On Fox, the NFC title game. These 2 teams, they play each other. Sid said it, in our interview with Kaelin, a few minutes ago. the 49ers have beaten the Rams the last six times, including, both meetings this season. Of course, the meeting that got the 49ers in the playoffs is actually going to be the 49ers' 17th trip to the NFC, title game. They've won 7 of those games. They'll try to make it number 8. So, Christine, you start this one. This should be a fun one. Where do you stand?
It's just the ultimate California matchup, I think in a similar way, this is like a home game for both teams just because it's in the home state, and this might as well just be the Super Bowl just because of fans coming in from both sides. But you cannot deny the athleticism that the Rams have on their teams. I heard something a couple of days ago, and it's really true. The Rams have the highest caliber of football on a team ever seen before. I mean, you can't deny that their defense is unmatched, and Cooper Kupp is just a stud. I mean, him and his connection with Stafford is alone undeniable. So that last catch of the game, it said it all to me. At this point, I could see them holding on to a strong lead for the entire game, but like what we saw last week with the Buccaneers, I wouldn't be surprised if they ease up a little bit and they do let the 49ers catch up on them. On the other hand, they beat the Packers, the 49ers. I mean, Robbie Gould, former Bear, what a great way to say screw you to not only Chicago, but the Packers too.
That is your dagger. Shout out Wayne Larry.
Exactly. So this one is tough because it's hard to fight the athleticism of the Rams with the 49ers. So if it comes down to the field goal, you can guarantee that the 49ers are going to make it no problem, especially with Robbie Gould. If we're talking about defense and scoring and athleticism, it's going to go to the Rams. So Can you come back to me? I literally have been questioning this one all day because I don't know. Like, I want to say the Rams are going to win it, and it'd be cool for them because that'd be another Super Bowl where a team has home field advantage. But I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go with the Rams. I can't fight the athleticism, and especially what I saw, I can't fight it. So I'm going with the Rams.
Here's the thing. The 49ers got away with one last week, even though it was sweet for us Bears fans. The 49ers had no points on offense. They cannot do that again against the Rams on Sunday. Jimmy G must play much better. The running game has to be better. And you have to use your tight end, George Kittle, a little bit more like you did in the second half. On the flip side for the Rams, you almost gave that game away with 4 turnovers. Tom Brady would be playing right now if it wasn't for Cooper Kupp's catch late on that. Yeah, on that game turned out to be that game-winning field goal drive. The Rams, as we talked about all season, guys, when they out physical, they usually lose. The 49ers can out tough you and out physical you. The Rams have been having trouble with that all year. Look at that Tennessee Titans game from earlier this season. Of course, look at the both 49ers games. It's going to be a close game. I'm kind of with you, Christine, but I've been on this team's train all playoff long. I'm gonna go for it one more time, or one more again, as you young folks would say. I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers by a field goal.
All right, okay. I'm with you, Christine. I've been back and forth on this. I mean, this really is a coin flip game.
It is.
I know. Look, I know the 49ers have won 6 in a row. Yes, as it's hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. Yes, I know this is for the Super Bowl. It's really going to depend on, minimize the mistakes with Jimmy G and see if Deebo Samuel can kind of be that all around, all purpose, offensive guy. I mean,
hopefully his knee is okay because he got hit with the helmet with that knee last week.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything that is going to be an issue. Our girl Kaelin Mills, who does a great job covering the 49ers over, in the Bay Area over at I know we just had her on, but KRON in the Bay Area. But I haven't seen anything about that he has been practicing the last couple of days, so maybe that means he will play. If the defense can force Stafford to kind of and remember Von Miller, that was his first game. Von Miller didn't play in those games. I don't think he played in that second meeting either. So he's definitely going to be an X factor too. So I don't Cooper Kupp, the safety for the 49ers are kind of, but Jesus, it's just, again, this could come down to a field goal again, so I'll
Yeah.
just give it to the Rams. Maybe because it's home field, I guess. I don't know. It's just crazy at this
Yeah,
point.
it's like home field for both teams, though. That's
Right.
the thing. So,
Well, yeah, and I guess the tickets are to say it's going to be more 49ers fans. There will be Rams fans. Take that for what it's worth. But I don't know.
And the Rams organization trying to ban 49ers fans. Good luck with that. It's not going to happen.
That's not gonna happen.
You've got people who live in San Fran that work in San Fran and live in Los Angeles. So people need to. I know it's like about a 3 or 4 hour ride, but
right.
That's just silly. But we'll see. We'll see once they get there over at
the Rams are favored by 3.5, and the over under total stands at 45.5.
Okay. Stay away from that point total because I
think they could be low. If I was a bet man, I would bet under 46.
All right. But you know what though? Look, I think NBC. I think Chrissy, you said NBC. They'll be happy regardless. I mean, you can't go wrong with any one of these combinations. These 4 teams. Yeah, you can kind of say that they were opportunistic for the Bengals, but the other 3 you kind of figured that they would probably be in the championship game. But it should be. Look, as long as they're both entertaining, I think we can't really go wrong. All right, those are our championship Sunday picks here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Cindy Brown and KXRB's Christine Manika. I am Lakeena McGee. All right, Christine, I know you've been gearing up. I know you've probably been heard it on your shows this week, but what say you about these Bears moves? Of course, Ryan Poles, of course, the guy that helped build that Chiefs, helped scout it and draft some of those Chiefs players. He's now the GM, of course, Matt Eberflus or Eberflus. I'm sure he'll correct it once they do. Remember also too, the press, they'll have a press conference, introductory press conference of both these guys at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, Monday. So, I'm sure we'll have coverage on here. I'm sure, Sean and I will have the coverage there on Monday. So, but yeah, what do you think of these moves, Christine?
A lot can happen in a week, can it? It's just so... Correct me if I'm wrong, but when George McCaskey announced, what they were going to do going forward, getting rid of Coach Nagy and Ryan Pace, I thought that they were going to really take their time with all these decisions, and I thought that they were going to look for more experienced people. Ryan Poles does not entirely scream, yes, I'm an experienced person to me. I get it that he's got a great eye for scouting. He did wonders with the Chiefs in that regard. But he's 36 years old. This is his first general manager position. This is his first big gig. So to have the Bears pick him right away off the bat saying, oh, let's just throw him to the Wolves and see what happens. I don't think that was the smartest idea that they have. It doesn't make sense to me when you have all these other qualified general managers out there like Jeff Ireland. I don't understand why. I guess, I've read all the reviews about Poles, and I'm going to trust it and say, okay, maybe he knows what he's doing. But until we see some sort of a result, I don't think we can all fully have our judgments. Same thing goes with Coach Eberflus. It's like, where did he come from? That pick came out of nowhere, kind of, and. It's interesting. Although everyone can, moan and groan about it, I wouldn't count him out either as being a good head coach. I ate my words this year when I said, the Colts aren't going to be great, especially with Carson Wentz. Look at what the Colts did this year. Now, I know they lost their last 3 games of the season, but they had a way better turnout than what the Bears did. So that isn't seriously, they had a way better season than what the Bears did. So until I see this guy coaching and getting into the swing of things, I'm going to hold off my judgment just because he's coming from a good organization that had a better season than what the Bears did. So you can moan and groan, like I said, how long that you want, but this is the future. This is Ryan and Nat 2.0. We'll see what happens.
We talked about this earlier, Lakeena. You have to give young people their shot. They got to start somewhere. So,
Yeah.
and I like that the Bears. And we talk about the Vikings too, also having their first Black American GM in their franchise's history. You have to give young people their shot, and I just want to see both these guys succeed under a fair system.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, with the new head coach for the Chicago Bears, we talked about this earlier, Lakeena. The coach led the AFC in takeaways this year with 33. Well, but the thing that I like the most about this new head coach, from what I've read and heard, he holds his defensive unit accountable. If you're not hustling and making plays, you're not paying attention to detail. Does it sound familiar? Anyone? Bill Belichick or Bill Belichick on this show? Bill Belichick, he holds these players accountable. And what's been the one major problem during the Matt Nagy era? Guys getting dumb penalties, undisciplined play, taunting fouls, and making excuse for it in front of the media. I'm glad that's potentially is going to get cleaned up, because that was a major problem that had not too many people wanted to talk about.
And who knows, maybe Khalil Mack can even benefit from him too, since this guy has a defensive eye, because we didn't really see a lot of Mack play big plays this season. So that'd be nice to get back to that too.
That's if he's brought back.
Yeah, I'll say they might trade him. They might trade him a dump salary. So you never know. And speaking of, we were talking about a good OC, Tom Silverstein, I should say, who has covered the Packers forever. I mean, I know the name may sound familiar to some of you. Yeah, he is reporting that Packers QB's coach and passing game coordinator has an offer to become the new Bears OC. That's Luke Getsy. He's been there. He's been, of course, Aaron Rodgers and those guys for the last few years. So apparently the job is his for the taking, Mr. Getsy. So we'll see if he accepts it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I want to run this point by Christine as well. We talked about this earlier, Lakeena, that this new coaches that whenever they hire the new defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator, these new coaching staffs go over every single game that is played the prior season. This new coaching staff is going to have a paper bag and probably a big garbage dump in the office. Looking at every single game from this past season. Matt Nagy did this, he did that. What players, which players quit, which players didn't, and which players could be brought back? And are we, if you're the defensive coordinator, are we staying with the 3-4, or are we going to the 4-3? If we go to the 4-3, which players off this roster can we use? I'm not gonna say I feel sorry for this new coaching staff, but there's going to be a lot of long nights looking at that film for this past season.
Well, and then you got to think of the players, too. They've been going about the same routine for maybe 2 or 3 seasons, whatever the case is. And now they have to start over from scratch, too. So whatever they were doing before, it's all about to change. And this could be a good thing for a lot of guys, especially the rookies. Maybe this is a time for Justin Fields to get out his habits, whatever he learned from Nagy, maybe even whatever didn't get cleaned up from his time at Ohio State.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, his name's being floated around as well. So yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, look, they're going to be, I would say, kill all this stuff with fire. Kill it with fire. Kill all of it. Kill all those things. But yeah. Let's see. I mean, it's sort of one of those things where we just don't know. I mean, Josh McCown might get the Texans job. Minnesota's still, out there and up for grabs. Nathaniel Hackett is the new head coach, for the Broncos. There's still a couple more openings. The Miami job is still up for grabs. Brian Daboll may have his pick. He's supposed to be having a second interview for the Dolphins. So what besides the Bears, what do you think, head coaching job is the most intriguing that's left, Christine?
I think the Saints, it was kind of shocking that Sean Payton announced that, I'm done. And it's like, wait a minute, what? You still have 3 seasons on your contract. Now, granted, I think a lot of Saints fans saw it coming, that he was almost on his way out. Whether he goes to a different team in the NFL or whether he takes this time to take the year off and figure out what's the next step for him, that's going to be a big position to fill. Sean Payton did a lot for that organization, and not just for the organization, but for the whole city of New Orleans too, with Katrina and then rebuilding the dome and helping out that community. So he has made a significant impact. So that job is definitely enticing, especially because they're big shoes to fill.
They're in salary cap hell though, I think.
$75 million worth it in the red.
That's probably that might be why he left, I think, because he burned out and too like, okay, yeah, we may have to start over. So yeah, good night, everybody. But yeah,
Yeah.
Sid, I know you got a couple of other like media news you want to share with us.
I wanted to get Christine's thoughts that the Amazon is trying to woo Troy Aikman over to do Thursday night games for possibly Al Michaels. Does this mean that Troy Aikman leaves Fox? I doubt it. But speaking of Sean Payton, you mentioned Christine. He made he could take a year off just to chill. Or I know Fox was rumored to hire him to do studio work or in-game analysis. What do you think? Do you think that Sean Payton will do that for a year or two?
I wouldn't be surprised if we see him doing game analysis stuff. I don't think he's going to be working behind the scenes. If they're going to have someone like him, they're going to want him front and center because he's going to have the key eye to whatever the coaching staff is talking about or whatever the coaching staff is telling their players on the sideline in that type of situation. So definitely I wouldn't be surprised if we see him as a game analyst. As far as, the Troy Aikman situation, Joe Buck and Aaron Andrews have both said, yeah, we don't want him to leave. And I don't think Troy Aikman wants to leave either. So if that is the case with Fox, that'd be a huge shakeup.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I'll give it back to you in a second, Lakeena. But here's the thing. Let's just say Sean Payton gets hired to do a game broadcast. Do you really want to stick him with the number one crew with Buck and Aikman?
Well, it's bad enough that I got to watch Joe Buck.
Oh, my gosh.
Or do you stick him in the number two booth with Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen, one-time former Bear who should never have been traded, but that's a whole other issue. But do you stick him in the number two booth with Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen, who did a great job this year? That wouldn't be bad.
It wouldn't be bad, but at the same time, I don't know how I would feel with him being on a game broadcast. There are some guys that have it. It's some guys that don't have it when it comes to calling the game. Tony Romo, he's great at what he does. He's a great color analyst. And then again, you have some guys that just don't know what to say in those situations, and it bites them in the butt. So I can't say I see him in either position, in all honesty.
Well, yeah, and also too, they might keep him in the studio, I think. So I think he might be more suited for it.
Right.
That's just my opinion. But Sean Payton's got a great personality. And look, if you're Fox, do you stick him in, your top two, top two announcing crews, when he might be leaving in a couple of years. So you need consistency. Right. Now, as far as the Aikman situation, I mean, he's been very honest. He said, look, I may do it in addition to, but I don't think he's going to leave. Yeah, I heard Buck saying in the podcast. I think he did a couple days ago, and I know he doesn't want to leave. They've been together this will be their 21st season together. This is gonna be their 21st NFC championship together. I don't think Fox is gonna want to do that. I don't think his contract's not even up to 2023. So they're gonna have to. Amazon's got to fork over some money if they want to get him out of that contract. So I think he's going to do it in addition to. He actually likes doing those Thursday night games, believe it or not, which I find it hard to believe. I know Tony Romo said he hated doing those. So, take that for what it's worth. But yeah, I don't think either. I think he's going to do it addition to. I don't think he's going to leave Fox. Fox is going to do everything they can. I'm sure they might. I don't think money is that important. I'm sure they're going to, bump his pay up so that he doesn't leave. But yeah, he probably, if he does end up doing, Amazon games, it's going to be an addition to. I think he's not going to leave Fox.
Yeah.
I'm sure Fox will open it up for him. Like, okay, if you want to do Thursday night with Amazon, do some studio stuff with them. Okay, you can, but you're sticking with us.
One more piece of football news before you switch over to basketball. Christine, I know you weren't alive when this league took place in the early 80s, but the United States Football League, aka the USFL, is making its return. The first game will be simulcast on NBC and Fox Saturday, April 16th. Christine, I know the XFL they made a comeback right before the pandemic a couple of years ago. Actually, it wasn't too bad, but some people think that football all year round is great because when you miss the NFL in the off season, some of you football folks need your fix. The USFL is going to take a crack at it. Are you looking forward to spring football, or are you just saying, let me watch my other sports? When the NFL comes back, I'll be ready for football then?
I mean, I remember when the XFL came back, and wasn't it different when the reporters were actually talking to the players after it happened?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So who knows if they're going to do that this time around? That's always risky because, after a play, you never know what they're going to say. afterwards. I'm the type of person that doesn't mind a little extra bit of football. But then again, I like to have my sports separated a little bit and not get too much of an overload. So once in a while, sure, all the time, nah, I don't think so.
I was kind of like take it when the USFL was around. It was kind of take it or leave it for me. So like it didn't really matter too much to me. Now, before we get to the basketball, of course, baseball announced their Hall of Fame inductions, and it's the David Ortiz show. David Ortiz is the only player that was selected to this year's Hall of Fame class. Of course, he had 500 home runs, won 3 World Series in his career. One of 4 guys to do that. All of of course, Babe Ruth, Reggie Jackson, of course, Mickey Mantle. All 3 of them are in the Hall of Fame. So Big Papi joins them now. Of course, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds. In their last year of eligibility, I think they will get in because the committee and stuff like that. I don't know who's going to make up for that. Ortiz was the only one that got 70, over 75% of the vote. And Scott Rowland was very close. He'll probably get in next year. He might also be the only one too. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so what do you guys think of all of this?
I don't think I've ever been around where only one player was selected to the Hall of Fame. So this is just interesting in itself. I know a lot of people were saying Roger Clemens should be in it, and he put out a tweet saying, "Hey, look, I stopped caring about being in the Hall of Fame like 10 years ago. So everybody else move on. I've moved on. So let me just enjoy my life." I'm happy for David Ortiz, though. He was one of my favorites when I was watching the Boston Red Sox. So good for him and his excitement when he got the call too. I love that video. I can't get over it.
Yeah, let's not kid ourselves too. David Ortiz working in the media, especially with Fox, has helped him with his cause of getting to the Hall of Fame. Of course, his resume speaks for itself: 3 championship rings, over 500 for home runs. But him being in the media, being the loving guy that he is, that helped him as well. Will it do the same thing for Alex Rodriguez? I'm not sure, because people hate him more than Big Papi.
Oh boy.
But going back to Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, I think with this Veterans Committee, they'll finally get in, because both those guys were putting up tremendous numbers anyway before they alleged steroid use.
Yeah, I agree. And also too, Scott Rowland, who, look, I think he should get in. I know, some people think he's in the Hall of very good, but here's just some of the names. I won't say all of them, but good, because they're about a dozen. But there are just some of the names. Carl, for next year, that's going to be up for the first year. Carlos Beltran, Francisco Rodriguez, K-Rod, Jared Weaver, R.A. Dickey, Matt Cain, John Lackey, of course, won his last World Series with the Cubs, Andre Ethier, Jason Worth, Bronson Arroyo, Jacoby Ellsbury, J.J. Hardy, and Johnny Peralta. Are any of those guys going to get in the Hall of Fame, first ballot next year?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
So it'll be the Scott Rowland show next year.
And Mark Burley, the former pitcher for the White Sox from the 05 team, I think he got 4 or 5% of the vote. So he'll be on the ballot for next year.
Yeah.
Will he finally get in? It won't be next year, but will he finally get in?
Maybe.
It's going to be a tough climb for him.
Maybe. I remember too. I think Jerry Bryant was part of that committee that outside of the 10 years, so he might sneak his way in. I don't know.
That's probably the only way he's going to get in.
Yeah, probably. Right. All right, Christine. The Bulls and the NBA. What are your thoughts, real quick?
I think it's terrible with what happened during that Bucks game. I mean, the poor guy Alex just came back. Then all of a sudden, boom, wrist broken, 6-8 weeks out. That is pretty significant, and not to mention the fact I believe Ball is still out too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of big losses. But you know what? I've been saying it from the beginning. This team can handle anything. They can handle any sort of adversity that's being thrown in their way. And again, you have to give credit to the coaches for that, for maintaining that strong leadership and that strong camaraderie. And you got to give credit to the bench players to be like, all right, I'm going in. This is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to help my team. I want to make an impact in some way.
What are your thoughts about DeMar DeRozan being named a starter for the All-Star game in a few weeks?
I think that's awesome. I saw that video of Zach LaVine saying, can I have your attention, please?
Yeah.
Captain Zach in the house.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's great for him. His stats speak for himself, the way that he's been a real playmaker for this Bulls team. good for him. There's a reason why he's a 5-time All-Star.
Yeah, most people said that move during the off season by AK and GM Mark Eversley was foolish. Those people are eating their words now.
Yeah.
Look, the Bulls Twitter account, congrats to those guys because they played it very well. I mean, bad fit, he and Zach won't get along and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Hey, look what happens now. John Morant makes his first All-Star appearance, so you love seeing that. Yeah, I know our buddy Jason Pfeiffer's been touting him since he was at Murray State. So,
and don't forget our buddy Big Dave Watson too, calls the Locked On Bulls podcast.
Yes, so yeah, Dave's definitely been touting him as well. So yeah, so congrats to him, of course, LeBron for like the 50th.
Oh, I thought that was hilarious.
I know, right? That was like funny how
what's going on? I did a little research on him. So his parents were actually big basketball stars at Arkansas, I believe, and his mom in particular was one of their top shooting guards. So the fact that this kid is in his first, NBA team, on his first NBA team ever, being thrown in and LeBron is talking to him, he's probably thinking, oh my gosh, LeBron James is talking to me. Oh my gosh, he's telling me what to do. Oh my gosh, what he's saying to me is not making sense, but I'm going to go with it.
I'm just going to nod. And yeah, that gif is probably going to be like go on forever. And I know he loves that. All right, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Steph Curry, John Morant, and Andrew Wiggins are Andrew Wiggins for the first time. It was the first time.
He's really, he could be a comeback player of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely been kicking butt. And Kevin Durant, of course, he's heard Giannis Antetokounmpo. I almost got it.
Wow, good job.
I know, right? And DeMar, of course, and Trae Young going for the second straight year. So yeah, so a couple of good ones here.
Yeah, of course, the reserves will be announced next week, and I don't think I'll have to get out my pitchfork. Of course, the reserves are picked by the coaches, but Zach LaVine's name should be mentioned by this time. Next week, we will bring you on, Christine.
I hope you're right, Sid.
So Lakeena is getting her audio issues together. What are you looking forward to besides Championship Sunday this weekend, Christine?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question, Sid. I don't know. Probably just putting my feet up, relaxing. I actually have a little bit of work I got to do tomorrow. So I'm just looking. I love football. I love this time of year. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Some really good, NBA games. We talked about it earlier. Also, some great college games. You got the SEC, Big 12 challenge. Yes, don't ask me why they're doing this in the middle of conference season. I don't know. I know it's absurd. But yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to this weekend. So yeah, so a busy sports, Sunday. This is a great time of year. And yeah, it's a whole lot of fun.
Yes, it is a whole lot of fun. Real quick, Christine, 45 seconds or less. Aaron Rodgers, do you think that he's played his last game in Green Bay? And if so, where do you see him playing next year? Yes. It's probably the first of 1,000 times we asked you this question.
Yes. And I think he'll be, if Nathaniel Hackett is in Denver, he's going to go to Denver.
I definitely could see that. So we'll see what happens with Mr. Rodgers. He says he's not going to drag this out like he did last year. Of course, the new league calendar year / free agency starts on March 16th.
March 16th, yep.
All right, Lakeena, another great show today here on the hashtag Football Friday right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We'd like to thank Mr. Kaelin Jones from The Ringer, who covers the NFL. He hopped on with us to talk NFL, Bears, and Championship Sunday. Follow him on social media. Read his stuff at theringer.com. So we'd like to thank him for joining us here today. Of course, we'd like to thank our girl, Christine Manika, as always. She's here every Friday giving us her hot takes, along with her hot picks from football. So we'd like to thank her as well. Lakeena, close us out.
You follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Christine, where can the lovely people follow you?
They can follow me on Twitter at CManica_KXRB.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you download subscribe to our podcast, Second City Sports at War on Anchor. We're available on all podcast platforms. And follow War Media at WAR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. I know it's snowy outside in the Midwest, and I know the East is going to get hammered with even more snow and ice. So just be safe and be good to each other. And look, if you're not going to get the vaccine, wash your hands. I messed up there for a second. But yeah, make sure you guys wash your hands. And like I said, just be good to each other. For Sid and Christine, I'm Lakeena. This has been Second Seed Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you next week.
Till Monday, go Bulls, holla!